All right. We are live and ready to rock and or roll as the situation may require. Good morning. Thanks for being with us. Happy Friday to you. It is the 19th morning of the 12th month in the year of our Lord 2025. And you have navigated your way to Strictly Speaking Unfiltered. Appreciate you being here. I'm Bob France. You probably already knew that when you logged in. Loving the new platform. This is day 5. Loving the new platform. Still need to make sure more people know about it. Core audience of fantastic patriots watching this show every day for the last 4 days is amazing. You guys need to do one last thing for me. Remember, the three most important things are like, follow, and subscribe. The fourth one is the one I need you to really focus on now. That is share. Share it with other people. Let's turn the music down a little bit, but I do want to keep the vibe going a little, at least maybe for a few minutes, because I like it. It's a good way to start the day. But yeah, please make sure that you share. If you like what you see on this program, first of all, help us out. We are completely Patriot funded. That's the way this works. Not corporately funded in any way. So if you can help us out, that's great. But most importantly, help us out by sharing the channel with people. Let them know that we are here. And don't forget, press play and walk away. We need hours. Not only do we need viewers, we need hours. We need to get this number of total followers up over 1,000 this weekend, and then push it up over 12 to 1,500 next week. And you know how the drill goes. In order to really reach and have maximum impact of influencing and shaping public opinion on the things that matter the most to all of us. That's what we're here for. It's why we do this show. So thank you for being a part of it. A lot of things to do today. 2 guests coming up. In about a half an hour, we're going to welcome my friend Jonathan Broadbent in. Jonathan Broadbent is the founder and the owner of Unwoke Investing, and he's going to talk to us about the disappearance of the white millennial male in the professional world, in academia, in professions, and so forth. White millennials have been targeted for extinction. There's a phenomenal piece, almost book, small book style report that was done by a guy by the name of Jacob Savage. And Jonathan and I are going to talk about it. Why DEI, how DEI and meritocracy cannot coexist. Obviously, DEI is winning or has won already, according to the way the numbers read on white millennial males. Meritocracy is out the window. We're going to talk about that at 10:30 Eastern time here with Jonathan Broadbent. Then at 11 o'clock, yesterday we tried to make our connection. We failed. It was a time zone issue is all it was, because Dr. Everett Piper is in Central Time Zone in Oklahoma, and he's going to join us here to talk about, well, a number of things, not the least of which is the ongoing brawl between Ben Shapiro and his Daily Wire, Turning Point USA, and those who have savaged Turning Point USA after Charlie Kirk's murder, including Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, and to a certain extent, Megyn Kelly. Ben Shapiro at America Fest yesterday just took them apart. And I mean, AmFest is going on right now through the weekend, just absolutely destroyed them. And Tucker, by the way, is speaking there. Tucker has been, for whatever reason, even though he is joining the conspiracy theories, put out by Candace Owens about Charlie Kirk's murder, Tucker still somehow manages to remain in the good graces of Turning Point. It's really, really bizarre, to be quite honest with you. But Ben Shapiro was having none of it, and I'm going to share that with you coming up here in just a few minutes, actually. So we're going to talk about it in depth, though, with Dr. Piper. That'll be coming up at the top of the next hour. We're going to cut it a little short today, by the way. About 11:45 is when we're going to wrap. So if you want to get in and be a part of the chat on Rumble, let's go. Get in there right now. If you tuned into this, like you got used to tuning into the radio every morning for this program, make sure that you have something to say. And you can sit and listen, but get into the chat, and maybe something you read there will elicit a response. So we want to make sure that the chat room is filling every single day, and we appreciate you being with us. Don't forget, like, follow, subscribe, and share. That's what it's going to take. I want to share something with you real quick. The paintings behind me, I told you about earlier this week when I mounted them, where I got them. I got them from a local, when I say local, Northeast Ohio-based artist named Ray Simon. His agent and publicist, Ken Markovich, came to me and said, I'd like you to meet the art. We were at Strongsville GOP, and he said, I'd like you to meet the artist. And I saw the full-size paintings that were there at the event, and these are prints, of course, and the actual paintings. One of them, the Charlie Kirk painting, is in President Trump's home in Mar-a-Lago, mounted prominently for all to see. And the president's portrait that you see also behind me there, that one is actually hanging in the White House. And they have actual pictures of those paintings hanging. Anyway, people have been asking me since I showed this up here, how do you get those? They love them. And I contacted Ken and I contacted Ray and I said, can I promote your stuff? And they said, absolutely. And they even gave a discount on it. So let me share this with you super quick, because it's really, really, I think it's important. Let me share. That's not the screen I want to share. This is the screen I want to share right now. So hopefully you're seeing that. Are you seeing that painting of Charlie Kirk? You should be. Now let me make it larger for you. Yeah, that's the one that is behind me. It is authenticated, signed by, mine is by Ray Simon, and every one of these comes with certificate authenticity and a backstory, the inspiration behind why he painted it. The work here is just impossible to describe how beautiful it is. I'm looking at it in, a broad, big screen, and of course I have the actual 16 by 20 behind me. But that's just one of them. The other one. And that's the other one that's hanging behind me. It is just, again, I'm not an artist. So I don't even know. I'm not an art critic. I don't have words to describe how phenomenally lifelike. It's like he's sitting right there, standing right there. And then the silhouettes behind him. And as you can see, the sky over the White House kind of morphing into the flag with the We the People. It's just phenomenal work. I just love it. And people have said, how do you do it? How do you get this? If you've got conservatives in your life that you haven't finished Christmas shopping for, this is the way. Go to raysimon.art, R-A-Y. Oh, you know what? I think I can do this even better. Hold on, because I wanted to make sure I could share this with you. Yeah, I'm going to just put it up for you to see it in the corner of the screen. There you go. raysimon.art. And then use the promo code France to save 10% off any of the patriotic paintings that you see. I'm going to show you some of the other ones from the website. That is another one. That is President Trump's incredible fight moment. And I love the eagles soaring overhead, the symbols of freedom as well. And I just highlighted a few other ones too. Always faithful, Semper Fidelis, a Marine, inspirational Marine and military painting, the profiles of courage. It's incredible. This is just a glorious sight. Fields of Freedom. Again, these are all painted by a local artist. Ray Simon is just phenomenal in the art community. And I love this too. This ode to President Lincoln. The memorial up in the top in the sky in the background, President Lincoln reading to children, white and black. I just love these. And this one is called The Crucifixion, and it's Christ in the crucifix pose, but rising, as you see, and with all of God's creation visible in the background, and those that he cares for on the ground. I just love it. And that's just me with the pictures behind me, obviously. So raysimon.art is what I want to get through to you there. And by all means, please consider that for Christmas. If you're a Northeast Ohio viewer / listener too, by the way, it's easy because he is local. It's not like there's going to be a 7 or 8 day shipping situation. You can still have it shipped to you, and depending on where you are, maybe it'll be there by Christmas. You can actually come pick it up. You can actually order these at raysimon.art for the conservative in your family, and or on your Christmas list, I guess I should say. And where am I here? I'm just trying to remove that now from the screen. Okay, so that's just a little bit of an answer to some questions. I've been getting direct messages on my Facebook page, primarily saying, where are those pictures and are they for sale? They were for sale at the Strongsville GOP Christmas party last week, which is where I got mine. And yes, they are. And just as a reminder, if you look at the crawl going across the bottom of the screen, I put that website up there as well, just in case you forget it. raysimon.art. Use the code France to get 10% off. And that's awesome. All right. So what I do want to do now, though, is I want to share with you, and we're going to get into the turning point stuff, and I've got the guests coming up here. But as you can see on the screen, Columbus hates ice. What am I talking about? I'm talking about our capital city here in the state of Ohio, and just an unbelievable video that was cut, a promotional video by the mayor of Columbus, Ted Ginther, and the chief of police in Columbus as well. So there's a video here that I want you to see. Let me enlarge that for you. They are telling essentially all of the illegal aliens in Columbus how they can avoid ICE and how they should avoid ICE, because apparently the chief of police, which is supposed to be a law enforcement officer, and the mayor, who is supposed to oversee law enforcement officers like his chief of police, don't believe in enforcing, laws. That seems to be the case. Watch this 2 minutes of cringe worthiness.
Hi, I'm Mayor Andy Ginther.
And I'm Police Chief Elaine Bryant.
In light of the deployment of federal immigration and customs enforcement agents in our city, we understand that many of our neighbors may feel concerned for their safety. Please know that we stand with you and everyone who calls Columbus home. Since 2017, I've been clear that City of Columbus resources will not be used to help federal deportation efforts or investigations based solely on immigration status.
That includes the officers and resources of Columbus Police. Please know that CPD will not investigate Columbus residents solely based on immigration status. We will only investigate or apprehend someone if there is evidence of a crime. We cannot prevent ICE from being here, but if there is illegal or dangerous conduct, CPD officers will be present to maintain public safety.
I just want to make sure we understood what we just heard. We will not use any local law enforcement resources to enforce laws, okay? If somebody is here illegally and they're reported, we don't care. We're not coming and we're not cooperating. And we shouldn't either. I'm going to play that last, 10 seconds again to make sure that we understood what we heard there.
We will only investigate or apprehend someone if there is evidence of a crime.
We will only apprehend or investigate if there's evidence of a crime. How do you find evidence without investigating when somebody has reported a crime? And what if you have ICE issuing detainers saying there are individuals who are criminals that we want held, and when you encounter them, Columbus Police, we need you to hold them. We need you to detain them so that we can respond appropriately. And she's saying, unless we have evidence of a crime, not just an order from ICE, we're not doing it. The people of Columbus, by the way, there's your DEI chief. Look very closely at that picture. Tell me if you feel confident that law enforcement is on your side in the city of Columbus, Ohio, with that chief and Andrew Ginther, that mayor. We'll get back to it here.
We cannot prevent ICE from being here.
Boom, that was the other line I wanted you to hear. We cannot prevent ICE from being here. What is the inference there? What is she inferring? We would if we could. We can't prevent them from being here as much as we want them the hell out of here. We want our illegal alien criminals protected. That's what this DEI hire is saying, and that's exactly what this hack of a governor, piece of garbage, Ginther is saying as well. And I'm sorry, I'm pulling no punches with this crap. I am sick and tired of law enforcement turning on other law enforcement. Federal law enforcement is supposed to work in collaboration and in conjunction with state law enforcement. State law enforcement agencies like state troopers work in collaboration with county sheriffs. And county sheriffs work in collaboration with local police departments. It all is one great big law enforcement community. And when they turn on one another like this because of politics, it pisses me the hell off.
But if there is illegal or dangerous conduct, CPD officers will be present to maintain public safety. Every Columbus resident should continue to feel safe to call CPD and 911.
It's important that you know your rights and ways to keep yourself and your family safe.
Columbus is just a crap hole. I'm just going to say it out loud. Columbus is trash. And I don't care who hears that. When you elect people like Andrew Ginther as your mayor, and when you enable the types of garbage that goes on around the capital city and within the capital city and this kind of trash, honestly, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. I would hope, honestly, that residents flee that jurisdiction, especially if you were worried about violent crime, and especially if you're worried about the ongoing encroachment of illegal aliens on all of the public services that you are supposed to be entitled to. Taking up spots in your school, making your school classrooms overcrowded for your kids, so that, and also with massive language barriers, because most of these people come to the United States, don't assimilate, can't speak English, and these students make it more difficult for your child to learn. Soaking up resources in the emergency room and in the healthcare communities, soaking up our tax dollars by way of all of the welfare and the Section 8 housing and the EBT cards and everything else that they get. Illegal aliens are absorbing billions upon billions of dollars. That's in lawful expenditures. In other words, things that are given because of policy and legislation, not counting the fraudulent kind that we know goes on in Minneapolis, because we're all watching it play out in real time as they expose the fraud of the Somali nationals. Guess where the second largest population of Somali immigrants into this country is? It's in Columbus, Ohio. And here's the mayor, Andrew Ginther, and the chief of police telling you that we're going to protect the Somalis. We're going to protect the illegal aliens, not you. And we're not going to cooperate with ICE. We're not going to cooperate with our law enforcement partners in enforcing those laws. It is unconscionable. Here's the rest.
First, carry identification or documentation of your status with you. Stay calm and truthful when interacting with law enforcement. Know that you have the right to remain silent. Do not obstruct federal operations. Also, know that you do not have to allow immigration agents onto private property unless they can show you a warrant from a judge. Memorize the phone number of someone.
Look at this. Look at this shit. That's what it is. We are going to devote city taxpayer-funded resources to helping illegal aliens continue to break American law, to violate American immigration law, no matter what the consequences. That's what we are doing. I am disgusted by this type of left-wing bullshit. And I'm sorry, this is what we mean by unfiltered. We don't have to hold back anymore on things like this. This is exactly what it is. We prioritize the quote-unquote rights of illegal aliens, illegal enclaves of Somalis committing fraud like they are in Minnesota. We'll see how much of it's going on here. Right now, it's just a supposition, but we'll see. Well, we prioritize that over the actual citizens of Ohio, citizens of Columbus, citizens of the United States of America.
You can call if you need help. And know how to contact legal aid, community refugee and immigration services, and Columbus Police. We're committed to ensuring the safety and belonging of every Columbus resident, regardless of where you were born. Go to Columbus.
It's not about where you were born, you jackwagon. It is not about that at all, Mayor. It is about legality. A lot of people are born in foreign countries and they come to the United States legally. And if they want to come to Columbus legally, that's a very different animal altogether. You're making it sound as though ICE and millions upon millions of people who voted for Donald Trump to not only seal our border, which he has done, but also engage and start the biggest deportation in American history. We voted for that. You're in the minority. You prioritize the needs of illegal aliens over the needs of your own citizens. You should be recalled and drummed the hell out of our capital city. I am just disgusted by this stuff. I am done with this stuff, especially when you consider, do I still have the music playing? I might still have the music playing. My apologies. But especially when you consider, again, the resources. FAIR, the Federation for American Immigration Reform, has done the studies. CIS, the Center for Immigration Studies, have done the research. The billions and billions of dollars that come out of our taxpayer pockets every single year to fund and support the number of illegal aliens who are here, it's astounding. You wonder how much more money we could have in our own pockets to be spent in our own communities, greasing our economy and giving everybody a boost if we didn't have so much of it being taken away by illegal aliens and all of the resources that they absorb. It is just unconscionable. But that's what's going on in Columbus. And if you've got thoughts on that, get in the chat. I would very much like to hear what you have to say about that. I'm going to pivot quickly, though, here, because, again, I've got a guest coming up at 10:30. We're going to talk to Jonathan Broadbent about the attack on millennial white males who have just been devastated by DEI policies and affirmative action hiring. Absolutely. There's a massive deep dive that was done on this that Jonathan and I are going to talk about, but I want to spend some time here in the open listening to America Fest 2025. What I want you to hear is Ben Shapiro, who went absolutely nuclear in his address last night to the America Fest crowd. And he knows that some of the people that he is addressing are there. Some of the people that he is destroying are there because they have been invited guests of TPUSA as well. I don't know why they are, but they are. So I want you to listen. You know the story by now of the conspiratorial BS put forth by the likes of Candace Owens, specifically Candace Owens, but also Tucker Carlson, who is an invited guest there at Turning Point, and also Megyn Kelly, who has kind of vacillated back and forth on this issue. In fact, let me give Ben full screen here so that you can listen to this. But Ben Shapiro just went nuclear on all of them last night from the TPUSA America Fest stage, and I loved every second of it. This is a 20-minute part of his speech. I'm only going to give you about 4 minutes of it so that we have time to react a little bit before we talk to Jonathan, and I want you to react in the chat as well. And if you're not in the chat, don't be a passive listener and viewer. Be an active listener and viewer and get in that chat. Put a username up there, and let's hear what you have to say about this as well. Here we go.
We must also be honest about what people say and do, regardless of what that means coalitionally. It is the job of politicians to build coalitions. It's the job of those of us who try to shape public opinion to hold politicians to account and to hold them accountable to our values. We must not let fear of audience deter us from telling the truth. We must not let fear of other hosts deter us from telling the truth. So, for example, if Candace Owens decides to spend every day since the murder of Charlie Kirk
Listen to that reaction.
So, if Candace Owens decides to spend every day since the murder of Charlie Kirk casting aspersions at TPUSA and the people who work here, who worked with Charlie every single day, his best friends, to cast aspersions at Mikey McCoy and Andrew Colvin and Blake Neff and Tyler Boyer and, yes, at Erica Kirk, and to imply or outright claim complicity in a cover-up over Charlie's murder, to spew absolutely baseless trash implicating everyone from French intelligence to Mossad to members of TPUSA in Charlie's murder or a cover-up in that murder, then we, as people with a microphone, have a moral obligation to call that out by name. Erica Kirk and TPUSA never should have been put in the position to have to defend themselves against such specious and evil attacks, particularly in a time of mourning. And the people who refuse to condemn Candace's truly vicious attacks, and some of them are speaking here, are guilty of cowardice. Yes, cowardice. The fact that they have said nothing while Candace has been vomiting all sorts of hideous and conspiratorial nonsense into the public square for years is just as cowardly. Second, because we owe you the truth, we owe you the duty to speak out of principle, not personal feeling. It should not matter whether we despise someone or whether we love someone. The question is what they say and what they do, and whether those things are morally decent or not. On a political level, do they foster freedom, justice, and prosperity? On a personal level, do they treat others as they would wish to be treated? Personal feeling is not a substitute for moral judgment. To take again the Candace Owens situation as an example, friendship with public figures who say or do evil things is not an excuse for silence on the matter. Politics is not the sisterhood of the traveling pants. Politics is about principle, and if you are willing to sacrifice basic truth and simple principle in favor of emotional solidarity, you have betrayed your fundamental duty to the American people. First off, I should break the omerta here and just be a little bit clear. The notion that people in our industry are close friends, like we all take holiday breaks with each other and go to each other's kids' graduations and stuff, is generally untrue. Some people do that, most of us don't. We see each other at conferences and we talk on the phone and all the rest. We're business colleagues. But even if it were true that other public figures were our best friends, our very best friends, that does not relieve us of our duty to speak out of principle and not to cover up evil or shy away from addressing it out of friendship. So no, Tucker Carlson, it is not an excuse to go silent on Candace's targeting of TPUSA. Or to mirror her bullshit lines of questioning because you love Candace personally. The same holds true of Megyn Kelly, a person I consider a friend, characterizing Candace as a young mother and thus shying away from condemning her actions or fibbing about them. That is a non-starter. Meghan Markle is a young mother. Ilhan Omar is a young mother. That doesn't matter. And when Megyn said this week, quote, "My goal and my job here is to try to understand, yes, where Candace is coming from on this," and says she sees no purpose in inserting herself, quote, into this on one side, that is a moral and logical absurdity. There is only one moral side here, Erica Kirk's side.
Preach! Preach!
You know, the side of the widow with 2 children whose husband was shot live on camera in front of all of us. Friendship with the person accusing TPUSA of a cover-up of Charlie's murder is no excuse for cowardice. Third, and relatedly, we have a duty to take responsibility for what we say and do. If we hire awful people, we're responsible for that. I have some experience there, as you might suspect.
In case you don't know, he hired Candace.
That means that if we offer a guest for your viewing, we owe it to you to ask the kinds of questions that actually get at the truth. If we agree with the guest, that's fine, but we should own it. So, for example, if you host a Hitler apologist, Nazi-loving, anti-American piece of refuse like Nick Fuentes,
He's just bringing the heat to Tucker Carlson right now.
you know, the Nick Fuentes who said that the Vice President of the United States is a, quote, fat gay race traitor married to a Jeet. The person who said that Charlie Kirk was a, quote, retarded idiot. The person who said, and pardon my language here, it's his quote, that he, quote, took Turning Point USA and fucked it, and that's why it's filled with groypers. If you have that person on your show and you proceed to glaze him, you ought to own it.
I'm going to stop it there now. And,
There is a reason that Charlie...
So I want to stop it there because, like I said, we're going to have a guest here coming up in a moment or two. But I wanted you to really try to absorb as much of that as you can, because what he said last night absolutely needed to be said. I've been saying it to the extent that I can. I don't have the experience with these people that Ben Shapiro does, nor the platform. Ben Shapiro is a giant in this industry, in the conservative podcast world, the conservative influencer world. He co-founded the Daily Wire with Jeremy Boring. And they hired Candace Owens, and Candace Owens for a while there played, I think she cosplayed essentially that of a good conservative soldier. And she had all of the right answers and she had all of the right messages, and people really began to believe that Candace Owens was one of us. She was unquestionably an infiltrator, a plant. She was kind of a mole, whatever you want to call it. But she got inside the conservative community with the intention of fracturing it and just literally splintering it to harm it. And that's what she is doing here by attacking and turning Turning Point USA into the villain. Turning Point USA was victimized because their leader, their founder, our role model, our hero in many ways, Charlie Kirk, was murdered. Turning Point was murdered. Turning Point is struggling. Turning Point is struggling. Charlie Kirk's radio show, it's his podcast, but it's picked up by radio as well, including my former radio station. But Charlie Kirk's program was like one of the top 10 in that time in the country. And now that he's gone, they kept the show going with Andrew Colvin and some of the others that Ben just mentioned there. And they're like somewhere down to 100th or something like that. I read some quick glimpse of that, saw a quick glimpse of that online yesterday. They're struggling in terms of reach because Charlie was so dynamic. And so they've all been, to an extent, damaged, harmed by the bullet that took Charlie Kirk's life. And they're trying so hard to keep Charlie's mission going, to expand his reach in his death to even something bigger than he had in his life. And the number of requests for Turning Point chapters across the country is a very, very optimistic sign. It's a very, very good thing. Literally, we're talking about, hundreds of thousands of requests from high schools and colleges. Now, I don't know how many of them are coming to fruition or being granted. I do know that in the state of Tennessee, we just found this out earlier this week, and we talked about it. There is a bill, I think a Tennessee bill that is passed to open a Turning Point chapter or something akin to it in every single university, college and university in the state. So there is still a great movement there, but there is still great damage that was done. And what Candace and Tucker and others have done to suggest that Turning Point was in some way, any way, responsible for or knew in advance that Charlie Kirk was going to be taken out, and they wanted to, to take this thing in another direction because Charlie was, turning on Israel, and they want to keep the Israel connection alive, and all the other conspiratorial crap that has been put out there needs to be responded to. So thank God for Ben Shapiro. He's the right man at the right time for this statement and this clarification and this rebuttal to the trash from Candace Owens and the others that I mentioned. All right. I want to do a hard pivot now because the clock shows 10:33. And I teased this a little bit earlier, and let me see if I can actually pull this up or if I'm just going to have to tell you what it looks like. I was working very hard this morning on getting everything visible for you. Basically, there's an article that was written, and it's more than an article. It's almost like a small book, a short book, about the plight of white male millennials. White male millennials in the United States have been erased almost completely. They've been replaced because meritocracy has been replaced, because meritocracy is no longer welcome, because DEI kind of won the day. That's essentially what the article or the long form research done by Jacob Savage says. And this was shared with me in a group chat, a signal chat of conservative, like-minded folks by my guest now, Jonathan Broadbent. Jonathan Broadbent is he is the founder and the CEO of Unwoke Investing, among many other titles that he has and hats that he wears. And I asked him to come on and talk a little bit about this because he's the one who started the conversation. And lo and behold, look at that. There he is in person.
Like magic.
Jonathan, how are you, buddy?
Terrific. Hey, I love what you've done with the place, man. This is cool.
I'm still learning my way around it, actually. I've got to drop things off of the screen like that topic and put stuff up that I want people to see. And in fact, and to that end, let me go ahead and grab this screenshot of the article that you and I are discussing, which I find very, very interesting and very, very troubling, quite honestly, because it's accurate. There it is. And that is a mockery, of course, of the diversity is our strength moniker that, the left, where did my screen go? There it is. That the left, has tried to push on us, particularly during the 4 Joe Biden years. And this is actually a Substack article written by Bill Rice Jr., as you can see here. Hello, DEI, goodbye meritocracy. And it's more of a summary and a compendium of the deep dive work done here by Jacob Savage. And as you can see in that second paragraph, those who can see this, Jacob Savage's long-form piece of impressive journalism chronicles how, beginning around 2014, DEI obliterated the career prospects of white males in media, academia, and the Hollywood film and TV industry. So that's a pretty heady claim there, Jonathan. But I know you are researching and reading and discussing this, and that's why I wanted to bring you on and tell me what you've uncovered so far.
Well, thanks for having me on, Bob. I'll set it up this way. Bob, or Bill Rice Jr. has gotten to be a friend of mine through some mutual connections. And actually, I looked it up prior to hopping on with you, and it was actually a year ago yesterday that Bill Rice Jr. was a guest on my podcast, Unwoke.Academy. And Bill he's a powerhouse. He's a researcher. He writes well. And he stumbled upon this and did a really good write-up. So anybody, the TLDR, too long didn't read, this is a great synopsis of what I think you accurately described it as kind of a short book by Jacob Savage. And that I do suggest, if you have the time, dive into the whole long-form write-up that Mr. Savage did. But that can be found on Compact. That is an online publication called Compact. And the title of the article, there's a link to it from Bill Rice Jr. The title of the article is The Lost Generation. It's well worth the read. It's immersive, and it gets into all sorts of detail. Bob, I wish we had like a 2-hour segment to cover this, but really, I want to touch on what I consider to be some important elements of this. One is the old adage from your enemy, the far left, our enemy, and that is to always have an enemy. You always have to be pointing the blame somewhere. And for a long period of time, post-slavery, the Klan and Jim Crow, everyone was pointing at blacks in America as some sort of the terrible enemy. And we all know, those of us who understand history, that the Klan and Jim Crow laws and all that were the Democrat Party. So the Democrat Party, which is now kind of morphed into the Communist Party, has always had this strategy of pointing fingers and blaming somebody, some group of people. Somebody's at fault, somebody's responsible. It's divide and conquer. And now we shouldn't be entirely surprised, because they've been reading the tea leaves and the writing's been on the wall for at least 10 years now. Now the big culprit, the big group that everybody is supposed to blame for all of society's ills, is the treacherous white male. And heaven forbid you be a Christian, white, heterosexual, conservative male. I mean, we're like, the target is on our back. And these stats, this article proves it.
Well, we have heard for quite some time, Jonathan, that we white males are toxic, and we white males are privileged. We are part of the patriarchy, in addition to the, racial supremacy, white supremacy upon which this nation was founded, according to, as you say, the Democrat Party that has morphed into the Communist Party. And I don't even think it was that much of a leap, to be honest with you, but it has just picked up speed over the course of Trump. The rise of Trump and the rise of America First and the rise of ultra constitutional conservatism has just forced their hand, and they've moved further into communism. But we have long been the target, at least in conversation, in media presentation. And we do know that DEI was very, very real in the corporate world, in the world of academia, certainly in entertainment, the entertainment vehicles and so forth. But I have not seen the numbers. I have not seen the actual real world and real time damage that was done to white people until this research that was done to white males, again, the people who have been blamed for everything, which is pretty frustrating, because we just look like we're playing victims here. We're the snowflakes who can't handle it. But this is the reality here, is it's been talked about, it's been presented, but it's what's really being done underneath and in boardrooms and in hiring personnel decisions and things like that, Jonathan, is what I think people really need to be awakened to.
Yeah, and it all starts in education. And another old adage, and it just rings true, which is an opportune time to pause and say, once again, that there is nothing new under the sun. It's just history repeating. The target is children. If you want to shift a culture or a society or subvert a form of government, the best thing to do, and the left announced it like 70 plus years ago, is to target education and target children. And they've done that. We saw a long time ago the rollout of this critical race theory onto college campuses. And they tried to sugarcoat it, and it sort of worked for a little while when they rebranded critical race theory diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI for short. But then people like me and you and lots of others called them out and were like, no, we know what that is. It's critical race theory with sprinkles on it. So then they rebranded again and started calling it things like JEDI, which is justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. All that is just repackaging of a really, really bad idea. But I want to hopefully put this in a perspective that I think may be easily understood by many. And that is, if you're going to do something bad and really, really wrong, don't ever take the blame for it. Be ready, or actually, before you start doing the bad thing, start pointing at somebody and screaming loudly that they're a villain. And so, as I started to say, and I don't want this point to be lost, when after the Civil War and bad people in government started doing bad things, Black America became an easy culprit because everybody was up in arms about, literally, about what was happening with our country and the future of it. And so a lot of really bad, and I'm sorry to say, but a lot of ultra liberal, far left people just started pointing, and they're like, well, it's all those former slaves and the Black people that blame them. And it kind of worked. And Black people in America were the fallout victim of mass fraud and corruption that spread our nation. So you always have to have an enemy if you're doing something bad. And right now, it's shocking to the system, but I candidly, I think there are a lot of Black conservatives who are like, yeah, I've seen that before. We are just simply being pointed at by bad people, because if you go into communities, and you can see them all over, Chicago, Detroit, Cleveland, New York, Southern California, and parts all over the country, Kansas, and just simply suck money out of the economy and destroy communities, then people might revolt. People might go and, with pitchforks and torches and approach their government and say, hey, you guys are messing my life up. Unless you point to somebody and say, oh, look, it's those evil white people, those white males. They're terrible. And that's, sorry to sort of simplify in those terms, but that's really what's happening. And the fallout of that, to see this article with the stats, is breathtaking. And it really, he's done his research. Jacob Savage, I keep glancing to make sure I get his name right. Jacob Savage did a great job of researching this and showing, prior to the big rollout of DEI, we had X number, and it goes by industry and market sector. We had X number of white people doing these sorts of jobs, and in comes DEI, and massive percentages were replaced.
Do you have any of those actual numbers, Jonathan, in front of you? It's okay if you don't. I saw some of them on a chart that was associated with it, and maybe it was in Bill's part of this, his summary of Jacob's work here. But I just don't know for sure if I can.
I'm scrolling. Let's see, a few samples of numbers. And again, I'm reading from a Substack. If you haven't discovered Bill Rice Jr., as I mentioned, he's a friend of mine. It's a shameless plug for my Substack and my podcast as well.
Don't be as shameless as you want to be. Yeah, absolutely promote it and push it. And in fact, before we're done today, don't let me forget to ask about Unwoke Investing. But I think good news here is I can actually share the article that you're about to share the information from. So I'll put it on the screen for folks to see and follow along with us. If I do it right. Yeah, there's the numbers. Go ahead and take it from there, Jonathan.
Yeah, perfect. That's exactly what I'm looking at on another screen. So, but what I was going to say is a plug for Bill Rice Jr. Go find Bill Rice Jr. on Substack and follow this article. Follow Bill Rice Jr. He does amazing work, and we need more eyes on Bill Rice Jr. and people like him. Real journalism in the United States. And if you want to see an interview that I conducted with him, find Unwoke Academy also on Substack, or just type in unwoke.academy, and you can hear directly from Bill his interests and objectives. But focusing on this article, just starting at the top, at Berkeley, as recently as 2015, white male hires were 52.7% of new tenure track faculty. In 2023, they were 21.5%, down from 52.7 to 21.5. And then he goes across all sorts of different areas, especially academia. And that goes to the point that I was starting to make, that academics and what is taught to children and young adults has been a target for probably 100 years. We saw it on college campuses, and unfortunately, I think there's still a high degree of denial on the part of America that is invaded K through 12. I mentioned a few minutes ago the acronym JEDI, which stands for Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. The first time I saw that was actually Solon City Schools in Solon, Ohio, which is an affluent suburb of Cleveland. And it's clear that this is just simply repackaged critical race theory that drives a wedge between white and black, and it's divisive and damaging. This article, I mean, we could go through the list of details.
Well, I do want to. We obviously can't go too deep into the article, but just the place we were both watching a second ago. Those other two stats, you mentioned the Berkeley stat. Let's hit the other ones. The one above that. Since 2022, Brown University, again, an Ivy League school, has hired 45 tenure track professors in humanities and social sciences. Just 3 were white American men, 6.7%. Now, Jonathan, help me out here. I don't have the actual census in front of me, but what percentage of the country is white males, and what percentage of individuals in academia, in humanities and social sciences, are white males? The answer is a strong majority of them. How are only 6% of them getting jobs at elite universities like Brown? That's the question here.
Well, when I was a kid, we used to call it reverse racism, but now it's just, I mean, let's be fair about it and honest. It's just racism.
That's right.
So using anti-racism as a cover for racism is what's happening. I mean, you saw in that book Ibrahim X. Kendi released.
Oh, you mean Henry Rogers?
What's that?
You mean Henry Rogers?
No, Ibrahim.
That's his name. That's his real name. His fake, Mustafa name to make himself sound more down with the cause and to be more radical Black Islam. His name is Henry Rogers. He invented the name Ibrahim X. Kendi when he decided to be an author and an activist and to try to grift on race, on CRT. And social justice and anti-racism in the country today. That's who he is, by the way.
Thank you for that. I'd sort of tuned him out once I did a little bit of a dive into what he was doing and who he was, and just saw he was a terrible, disgusting human being trying to divide us.
Yeah.
So
and
I didn't go there.
And a fraud to boot, like I said.
And a fraud to boot. There are lots of them. They're race hustlers. They make money off of dividing us. But that's what we're seeing here. And then the third one, because I got off topic. I stopped reading these. But if I suggest everybody should delve into this and know this article and what's being talked about here. Of the 59 assistant professors in arts, humanities, and social science appointed to UC Santa Cruz, let me say that again, appointed to UC Santa Cruz between 2020 and 2024, only 2 were white men, 3%.
I mean, you have to be intentionally looking for somebody other than white men for that to happen. If meritocracy mattered at all, there's no way that the majority race and sex in these fields are going to be represented by only 3% at UC Santa Cruz, 6% at Brown University, down from 52 to 21% at Berkeley. These things you have to be actively saying, we are going for somebody other than white males because social justice and diversity and equity and inclusion demands it. There's no way they could have had just massive numbers of applicants for all of these positions or these tracks, to be given tenure and so forth. There's no way they could say, didn't get very many white male applicants. This is why we have what we have. We chose the best from the lot that was there. It is impossible to believe that, Jonathan.
Meritocracy is gone in this environment, but there's even a more sinister and worse element, in my opinion, and that's the careful selection of the worst that primarily Black America has to offer. The left focuses and are fixated on people like Jasmine Crockett, who they will take people, and to talk about fraud. I mean, she grew up in a very privileged sort of childhood, but now she carts out the mock ghetto, and tries to sound like she's the fighter for Black cause, etc. That's what the left are carting out. They will bypass vast numbers of capable, intelligent, reasonable Black Americans, men and women, in order to find the most extreme far left and say the only thing that matters here is that this Black person get into this position, which does even more harm to Black America, because now Black America in many of these roles are sort of caricatures of Black lack of capability. I mean, you look at, I'm absolutely not at all a fan of our most recent Supreme Court justice. She's not capable. There are plenty of Black men and women who could have been selected ahead of her. So I see a systematic selection within the far left of people who fit these categories, that check the box for diversity, whatever they cart that out to be, their sexual preference or whatever. But then lo and behold, you look at the character behind that person and they are ultra far left.
Yeah, that's the common denominator here is the ideology, not the quality of work or the quality of a resume or anything of that nature. And we're only talking about academia right now. Scrolling down a little bit more into Bill Rice's article, which again his Substack was all focused on Jacob Savage's work. So I just want to give credit and attribution where it's due. But he did summarize this, for example, in the entertainment industry. And some people are like, the hell with Hollywood. I don't care about that. Well, you know what? We are all turned off by the woke Hollywood. We understand that. But there are people trying to make a living in those fields who shouldn't be discriminated against because of their race and their sex. But here we are. The Doors, and let me see if I can share this back on there once again for folks to see and for you to see, Jonathan, where I am coming from now. There it is. The doors seem to close everywhere and all at once. In 2011, the year I moved, this is, and I get, is this Bill? Yeah, this is Bill talking. I'm assuming he's not quoting Jacob directly there. But I moved to Los Angeles. White men were 48% of lower level TV writers. By 2024, in just 13 years, they accounted for just 11.9%. The Atlantic's editorial staff went from 53% male and 89% white in 2013 to 36% male and 66%. That's a 20% drop off by 2024. White men fell from 39. Oh, and then he's going back into the academia here, so we're mixing it a little. From 39% of tenure track positions in the humanities at Harvard to just 18% from 2014 to 2023. So it's not just academia. That might be the most egregious. Just like for whatever reason, academia was where we saw the most horrific responses to the murder of Charlie Kirk. It was teachers, K through 12, and it was professors primarily who went online and celebrated and cheered the death of this, this awful human being. And so many of them lost their jobs, thank God, because of it. But it really does seem like academia is the clear factor here. Or not the clear leader, I guess we'll call it, in terms of what is being done to cancel white males for ideological reasons, right? Is there any other way to see that, Jonathan?
No, and you're spot on. If Hollywood is behind academia, it's not by much. And yes, we can write off Hollywood. I really did a long time ago. I don't tend to pay attention to Hollywood movies, and certainly don't pay attention to what these knuckleheads are saying off screen when they get in front of a camera and speak from their minds. and their hearts, and it's toxic wasteland.
Yeah.
But while we write them off, we have to pay close attention to their impact on society. They have an impact on culture, so they're held out to this high regard as celebrities. And I hate to say it because I'm not one of those people. I don't generally tend to pay attention to the things that people are saying. I'm not a pop culture kind of a person, never really have been. But a lot of America is. And so when you get kids, youth, seeing the person that they like on screen, the celebrity, saying things like white males are toxic and we're systemically racist from birth and things like that, it's going to have an impact. Especially, what's the old adage? If you repeat if you repeat something often enough, the lie becomes truth for
Right.
people. And so it doesn't matter what you're saying. And imagine for a moment you're looking at this through the lens of some 10-year-old somewhere, and they've got their celebrity, that does some TV show, and they've got some music that they like and a band and everything. If all of those people are telling them this piece of information that all white males are toxic, awful human beings, racist from birth, many of them will come to believe that. And that's the whole thing.
That is the goal, to generationally try to, wipe out white majorities and white, quote unquote, privilege, if you will. And the way to do that, and again, I covered this previously many, many times, not that I'm the only one, but when you tell a whole bunch of white kids to feel shame in the color of their skin, and there was just a state senator from Kentucky who was testifying at a legislative committee hearing that she feels ashamed of her white skin much of the time because it comes with privilege. When you tell kids to be ashamed of their skin color, then you tell other kids over here that you're screwed. You're never going to make it in this world, and it's because of the privileged ones over there who are lighter skinned than you, and then you turn them loose on the playground or in the playground of the world. What's going to happen? That sort of resentment cannot help but manifest itself in violence and in clashes between the races. And this is what CRT aims to do. It's what Marxism does, with the intention of bringing down the establishment. And Jonathan, I want to do something unusual here. Why would I even call it unusual? This is the 5th show we've ever done. Today's day 5 of this new show, so there is no usual yet. But I haven't had 3 people on at the same time, 2 guests and myself. My next guest, Dr. Everett Piper, is waiting in the green room right now to talk to me about a few other things, including Turning Point USA and the whole, Charlie Kirk death and the Candace Owens and everything else. But his background is in this field. When we're talking about academia, he is the former president of Oklahoma Wesleyan University and the author of a best-selling book called Not a Daycare. He's Dr. Everett Piper, and he's in the green room. And I say we cross over our guests rather than dropping one and beginning the next. Let's have a little crossover here.
I'm game.
Look at, there he is, straight out of Oklahoma, Dr. Everett Piper. How you doing, Dr. P?
I'm doing great. I trust you all can hear me okay.
You're coming through loud and clear.
Okay.
5x5 is. And
obviously, I'm the Okie in the group because I'm in scruffies and a ball cap, and I'm just coming off the farm. So forgive me for the unprofessional appearance. Okay.
You look perfect, Dr. Piper, and I love the fact that you're coming off the farm. Hardworking farm man. God bless you. You're the engine man that makes it happen. And what I love about you is you're a farmer now, and you've got your farm and you've got your livestock and so forth. But you are an academic, and you are a true Christian, soldier. As a proud evangelical, you bring people to Christ. You analyze things, and for those who don't know, before we dive into what Jonathan and I are talking about, for those who don't know, you obviously, as a columnist for the Washington Times, you write about matters of faith. You write about matters of family and things of that nature in our culture right now, including your most recent work. And I advise people to go to the Washington Times website to read your work, but also to follow you at Dr. Everett Piper on social media as well. But Dr. Piper, you're kind of an anomaly. You're an extraordinarily well educated and academic master who also happens to have a farm and works outside and is up at 5 every morning milking cows and doing everything else.
Yeah.
So it's really awesome. So that's just a brief background. Yesterday, I actually introduced you really, really well when you weren't there.
I'm so sorry for that. It was my fault. You clarified that it was Eastern. I thought it was Central. My fault. I goofed. Forgive me.
Not at all. But we had fun though, but doing a little background around Not a Daycare, and we went back to 2015 and 2016, and when you went viral, and then suddenly the letter you wrote to your students to suck it up, and you're at a university, not a daycare. We told the whole backstory there before you came on, or we thought you were coming on, but we'll do that again another time. But briefly, Dr. Piper, Jonathan Broadbent and I have been discussing this work done by Jacob Savage. It's a very lengthy piece that has been summarized on Substack by Bill Rice Jr., and it's about how in certain professions and avenues of work, including academia, including entertainment. What else, Jonathan? What were the other major categories? Academia, entertainment.
Leading the pack was academia, and we had Hollywood. The lengthier article released by Jacob Savage goes into detail on a number of different market sectors and industries and professions. And we've seen a remarkable drop in the number of white people represented in industry. And
particularly white males as well.
Particularly white males, yep. And it coincides with this big rollout of DEI, critical race theory.
Well,
which is why our conversation, Dr. Piper, and I wanted to bring you in on it because it only makes sense to, is we'll focus on the academia side of this because you ran a university. For how many years were you president at Oklahoma Wesleyan?
About 18.
18 years. So you know this inside and out. You're a part of the academy. So it really reached peak, I don't know what you want to call it, attack on white males in academia from 2020 to 2024. Perhaps not coincidentally, the Joe Biden years, but the study that Jacob Savage has done has gone basically from 2011 to 2024. And to see this massive shift away from white males as meritocracy was essentially crushed under a boot heel, and diversity and inclusion and equity were prioritized in all of these hiring decisions. Some of the numbers are staggering. So can you give us at least a little bit of background on or an idea of what you saw in academia, not just at your university, where I'm sure you wouldn't have let such things happen, where meritocracy reigned, but what you have seen in the academy?
Well, I think this thing is as predictable as the sunrise, and I agree with the critique that both you and Jonathan are bringing to the table right now. I've said before on your show, Bob, that as a guy who made my living in the ivory tower, I think I have the right, if not the responsibility, to criticize it if it's wrong. And I believe the academy is responsible for a lot of the garbage that we're suffering in our culture right now. Your grandma told you garbage in, garbage out. And if you continue to peddle ideas that are ideological carcinogens, then don't be surprised when you get cancer of heart, mind, and soul. And we have been peddling safe spaces. We've been peddling intersectionality, diversity, equity, and inclusion. I've said before on your show, at least I think I have, that I was the president of a university. I was never the president of a diversity. It's called a university for a reason. It's not called a diversity for a reason, because diversity, by definition, is going to be more divisive than it is unifying. The unity of veritas is the very premise of the Liberal Arts Academy. The Liberal Arts Academy was founded, let's just go back 1,000 years ago to Oxford and Cambridge, if you will, to do what? To educate a free people, a free society, a free culture, a free church, a free government, a free nation. There was freedom assumed in the word liberal. That's what it is supposed to be about, an education in liberty. You have no liberty if you don't acknowledge the existence of law. There's always a paradox between liberty and law, freedom and fences. G.K. Chesterton says that. The very Bible itself makes that point. Chesterton said, you get rid of the big laws of God, you're not going to get liberty. You're going to get thousands and thousands of little laws that rush in to fill the vacuum. And what we're suffering right now in our culture is we have torn down the very premise of a liberal, classically liberal, not progressive, classically liberal assumption as to what it means to be a free people. And we've replaced it with safe spaces. How many times have I said that C.S. Lewis tells us in the children's series, The Chronicles of Narnia, that Aslan is not safe, but he's good. There's a difference between goodness and safety. And when we elevate the inferior things over the superior things, you're not going to get either. You're not going to get the inferior, and you're not going to get the superior. You're going to subject yourself to the poison of the academy that we've been peddling for the last 2 or 3 decades at least. And as the result, you've got a bunch of self-centered, navel-gazing, immature individuals that don't understand what adult responsibility, culpability is all about, because they've been taught through DEI and critical theory to blame everybody else rather than to accept responsibility for their own behavior and their own outcomes. So this sounds like something that my truck driver dad would have told me. You don't need one of them their degrees hanging on your wall to make sense of anything I just said. I mean, suck it up, deal with it, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and take responsibility for your own life. That is what adulthood is all about. And the immaturity of social emotional learning and diversity, equity, and inclusion and critical theory goes back to, as we all know, Marcuse and the Frankfurt School. And it's all designed to divide. Back to my point, it's all designed to divide through intersectional conflict rather than to unite for common cause. There's a reason for this: divide and conquer.
Before Jonathan responds to that, I can hear your dad. I can hear your Okie truck driver dad in his Okie accent saying, "Them there are degrees on the wall. You don't need one of them there degrees." I just love that, and I love the literal horse sense of men of that caliber. Jonathan, you want to follow up on that?
The first thought that occurs to me is it is conspicuous, the absence of the most referenced book in the founding of our great nation. The very most referenced book. People don't want to acknowledge it, and people want to duck and cover and stick their head in the sand. But the most referenced book and putting together the foundations of our great nation is the Bible. That's what led to what we like to refer to as the Judeo-Christian value system. But if you hide that and make it completely obscure to generations of children, they have no foundation. There's no moral foundation. There's no philosophical or ideological foundation for what it actually means to be a free society and to be a worthwhile participant in that society. Because when you make the ground unstable underneath children, and right now we're seeing, and this is all out culture war. We're seeing nothing is allowed to be stable, even your own sense of self or identity or sexuality or gender theory. And all those things are meant to demoralize and destabilize a generation. But when you make it, it's almost illegal, practically illegal for a kid to touch a Bible. And I have examples that were given to me through a role that I served on Protect Ohio Children, whistleblower roles of kids. One kid was just simply doodling a cross in the margin on a paper, and another kid claimed that they felt threatened by that. And it worked. They had to go to the office and had a stern talking to about doodling an image of a cross. That's where we've gotten to. And I think that we need to get back to our foundations and get back to our roots.
And Bob, I
think that's yeah, go ahead, Doctor.
When Jonathan speaks of the Bible and how it's basically been purged from our educational system, so true. And unfortunately, even in some Christian colleges, rather than honoring the inerrancy of the word, okay, the reality that it's God's revelation to man, and we shouldn't monkey with it. We should read it, understand it, believe it, and apply it, period. End of story, full stop. No, we have to deconstruct it and make sense out of it in our own minds rather than accept it for what it is. The academy, the Christian academy, is so guilty of that. Sometimes I've come to the point where I've said, better to go to a secular school where at least the wolves are wolves rather than going to a Christian university where the wolves disguise themselves as shepherd, but they're very, very deadly. In fact, I believe there was a Catholic bishop years ago, Bob, that said wolves in sheep's clothing are dangerous, but wolves in shepherd's clothing are downright deadly. Piper paraphrased there, and I think that's so true. But the reality of and Jonathan, you may remember the author here. I have forgotten the author, but there was a book that came out in the 90s, if I recall correctly, and it was called America's Prophet. And the author, it was a summary of an extensive research project where the researchers had gone and read the seminal documents between, I believe, 1785, 1790, something like that, the founding era of our country, and documented references to various different seminal works, Locke, Montesquieu, Hobbes, etc. And by far, the document that superseded all of them combined in spades was Leviticus and Deuteronomy. And that is proof as to the foundation of our constitutional republic. It's the Bible. It's Moses. It's this idea that you've got liberty in law, not liberty without law. And without those laws, you're going to have chaos, anarchy, and you're going to have the quest for power rather than a free people governing themselves by biblical principles. Jonathan, am I right on that? I believe I am.
You are, and I'm looking up. I'm racking my brain. I'm drawing a blank on the author's name. Of course, it comes up with Khalil Gibran, who I've also read. But I know the book you're talking about, and it's important for anybody. And it's, I'll tell you what, second perhaps only to discovering and getting into the Bible, because I'm enjoying the heck out of every time I rediscover the Bible and get into it. I enjoy the heck out of it. Second only to that, getting into the history of the founding of our country and the documents that led to it and the ideas and the concepts. And on a radio show that I'm on just a few days ago, we got into this discussion about the loss of our ability to debate. One of the things that was very prevalent in the founding of our country was really rigorous debate. What works? What doesn't? How should we form our country? What should be the role of government? What should be the role of political parties? And are they good or bad? And all of that was fleshed out and debated. And the idea that we get kids through school, much less what we're spending on putting kids through 12 years of the yellow bus, and then post-secondary, but to get through all of that and have virtually no glimpse and no understanding of any of it, I don't think that can be by accident. It's by design and intention to dumb down our society.
And you get anger as the result. I listened to the end of your previous episode, and Jonathan, I think Bob was asking you about the consequence of alienating a generation of young white men. Well, I think the consequence is Nick Fuentes. You get vulgarity, you get anger, you get resentment that is understandable, but is completely misdirected because it isn't the male psyche. Masculinity isn't properly governed. And when that happens, all hell's going to break loose. You're not going to have a positive outcome.
Well said by both of you guys. I want to share, if I may, going back to the academia issue. My friend Brian, working underneath behind the scenes, made me aware of this. This is a graph that was posted. This was a tweet. And let me share it with you guys. And I don't know if you're going to be able to see it as clearly as I can, because I'll be able to go full screen, and you can't really where you are. But this is a graph or a series of graphs, as you can see, showing the mentions of prejudice in academic, and this is for you, Dr. Piper, primarily, in academic papers from 1900 to August of last year. And what you can see on the left of each of these is the relative frequency of the different terms of prejudice in papers. For example, in this first one in the upper left, racism and racist was discussed next to never in the early part of the 20th century. And it had a few spikes there around 1950. And then in 1975, you see a much greater spike. And then since then, just the catapult here, just this Swiss Alps type rise, especially in 2024. of racism and racist. Now, to the right of that, you can see sexism and sexist. Again, same time frame, 1900. And as we get into the 1970s to where we are now, boom, it is just a massive, massive part of academia and papers. Down here, we see homophobia and homophobic. Again, the frequency is a little bit different on each chart. So I'm not going to go into the depth on it. As you can see, in each one, but transphobia and transphobic never even began to be discussed until around 2000, as you can see in the middle right. Lower left is Islamophobia and Islamophobic, again from 2000, probably not coincidentally, 9/11 of 2001 to where we are today. And then anti-Semitism and anti-Semitic in academic papers. Interestingly, found its way into it much, much more in the, the period of probably I would guess in that area of 1935 to 1950. Of course, what happened then, with the extermination of the Jews, and it has kind of leveled off a bit since then. But Dr. Piper, those are academic papers. It's a pretty interesting look, your analysis of that.
Well, I think of Richard Weaver's 1948 work, if I remember the date correctly, Ideas Have Consequences. Ideas have consequences. You teach bad ideas, you're going to get bad results, period. End of story. And we've been teaching intersectionality. We've been teaching blame and accusation. I think we've been teaching our progeny to violate one of the 10 commandments, thou shalt not covet, because the very premise of a socialist society is to covet what somebody else has. I want yours. I deserve that. You should give me this. It should be redistributed to me. This is a teaching of the violation of one of the very 10 commandments that our country was founded upon, back to the previous point, that Moses was quoted more often than Locke and Montesquieu and Hobbes in the founding era of our country. So we've been teaching the wrong ideas and we're getting the predictable results. Again, garbage in, garbage out. And the person I think is most responsible for a lot of that uptick is Barack Obama. He had the opportunity to lead us toward the dream of a colorblind society. And instead of that, he doubled down on intersectionality, accusation, blame, and identity politics. And where are we today? We're arguing with one another. We're pointing the finger at one another. We're angry at one another. And again, we've alienated a whole generation of young white men who are sick and tired of this, understandably so. And they're reacting very, very aggressively against it right now. So garbage in, garbage out. It's no surprise.
Jonathan, you were nodding there when he brought up Barack Obama playing such an outsized role in all of this.
Yeah. Well, just look at his background. The people that refused to pay attention to the company that he kept in the lead up to his election as U.S. president were willfully blind. He grew up in a very far left Marxist environment, and Marxism thrives on divide and conquer. The whole identity politics, it's a major, major component. And that goes back to the comments I was making earlier before Dr. Piper joined us about always have an enemy. You can't come out publicly and say, I'm going to steal from the coffers. If you're going to do that, point to somebody and shout loudly that there's some villain out there. And then as soon as everybody gets their focus on them, then you raid the coffers and steal the money. And that's what's happening. At a broad level, we have really bad policy that continues to creep its way through state and federal legislature. And meanwhile, everybody's focused on who's to blame for their misery and suffering in life. That's by design. There's an intention behind that. If you'll forgive me, I want to just interject a comment that a Black conservative friend of mine mentioned a long time ago. And that is, he referenced Black America as kind of the petri dish for communist bad ideas. And I think the counter to some of what we're talking about here, if you are that angry white male who feels like society is vilifying you, it may sound strange, but I think what you need is to take a look at and find your way to get involved in Black conservative conversation, because you're going to find a lot of Black conservatives saying, yeah, we've been there, we've experienced that, and we know what you're going through. And then you can start to build some caucus around the ways to counter that narrative and fight back.
Fair point, Dr. Piper. You want to follow that?
Oh, I agree 100%. Thomas Sowell can say something that I can't say. I can say it, but it doesn't bring near the weight or the credibility. Clarence Thomas likewise can say something I can't say. But I can sure read it. I can sure echo it. I can sure say amen. I can support that. And I can try to train up another generation of young Black leaders to pay attention to the same. Because those ideas work. They know it. They know from whence they come because they were there. Well, that's one of the reasons I respect Ronald Reagan. He was there. He was a Democrat. He converted. Gene Kirkpatrick, one of the awards I have that I'm most proud of is I got the Gene Kirkpatrick Award for Academic Freedom back in 2016, if I recall correctly. She was a Democrat. She recognized the error of her ways and she converted. I respect those who have been there. They've wrestled through the struggle. They got their hands dirty and they recognized the error of their ways. In biblical terms, they recognized their sin, they repented, they recanted, they reformed, and they turned around 180 degrees and went the other way. That's the gospel message in a sense, and I think it's applied to all of life. And when I see somebody like a Thomas Sowell or Clarence Thomas, or the list goes on, of people that have been in the trenches and now have said, wait a second, my worldview was wrong, and I'm going to tell you why, I'm going to listen to that.
Very, very good commentary from both of you guys, and I appreciate you indulging me in this. And Jonathan, I think I'm going to have you back, and maybe spend a couple of hours on the entire Jacob. In fact, you know what we could do is have another 3-person conversation with Bill Rice Jr., since you've talked to him as well about Jacob Savage's work on the subject that we started our chat with this morning. To both of you gentlemen, and Jonathan, I don't know if you've got a jet or not. But you are welcome. I would love to, have you be a part of this chat that Dr. Piper and I were planning as well. And that is America Fest is going on right now, which you guys, I'm sure, are well aware. And Ben Shapiro spoke last night at America Fest. And one of the largest issues at America Fest, I think surrounding Turning Point USA right now, is the ongoing attacks that have been made by some of the people formerly of the, I don't know how to phrase it, but formerly of the conservative community, people like Candace Owens, who has just completely estranged herself from Turning Point by accusing Turning Point of either having foreknowledge of or being complicit in the murder of the founder, Charlie Kirk. Erica Kirk, after 3 months now of this conspiracy nonsense, finally sat down with her, but it was private. And the only thing that came out of it that we know so far is both of them said it was a quote unquote productive meeting. That didn't satisfy, and nor should it, in my estimation, anybody who is infuriated by what Candace has done here. And Tucker Carlson has been a big part of this as well. Now, Dr. Piper, you and I have talked about this, and you have written in your Washington Times column numerous times about this subject as well. So I thought I'd like to, and Jonathan, please stay if you can. I thought I'd like to play a piece of this that from Ben Shapiro last night in front of a Turning Point USA audience at America Fest, basically stripping the bark off of Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, and to a lesser extent, Megyn Kelly, for not standing up for Erica and the organization. So I played this for the Rumble audience in the first hour today, but I'm going to play it again now for those who may have just joined, and for you guys, at least a portion of what Ben had to say, and I would love your responses.
Position to have to defend themselves against such specious and evil attacks, particularly in a time of mourning. And the people who refuse to condemn Candace's truly vicious attacks, and some of them are speaking here, are guilty of cowardice. Yes, cowardice. The fact that they have said nothing while Candace has been vomiting all sorts of hideous and conspiratorial nonsense into the public square for years is just as cowardly. Second, because we owe you the truth, we owe you the duty to speak out of principle, not personal feeling. It should not matter whether we despise someone or whether we love someone. The question is what they say and what they do, and whether those things are morally decent or not. On a political level, do they foster freedom, justice, and prosperity? On a personal level, do they treat others as they would wish to be treated? Personal feeling is not a substitute for moral judgment. To take again the Candace Owens situation as an example, friendship with public figures who say or do evil things is not an excuse for silence on the matter. Politics is not the sisterhood of the traveling pants. Politics is about principle, and if you are willing to sacrifice basic truth and simple principle in favor of emotional solidarity, you have betrayed your fundamental duty to the American people.
I'm going to give him a little bit more room here, guys.
First off, I should break the omerta here and just be a little bit clear. The notion that people in our industry are close friends, like we all take holiday breaks with each other and go to each other's kids' graduations and stuff, is generally untrue. Some people do that, most of us don't. We see each other at conferences and we talk on the phone and all the rest. We're business colleagues. But even if it were true that other public figures were our best friends, our very best friends, that does not relieve us of our duty to speak out of principle and not to cover up evil or shy away from addressing it out of friendship. So no, Tucker Carlson, it is not an excuse to go silent on Candace's targeting of TPUSA. Or to mirror her bullshit lines of questioning because you love Candace personally. The same holds true of Megyn Kelly, a person I consider a friend, characterizing Candace as a young mother and thus shying away from condemning her actions or fibbing about them. That is a non-starter. Meghan Markle is a young mother. Ilhan Omar is a young mother. That doesn't matter. And when Megyn said this week, quote, "My goal and my job here is to try to understand, yes, where Candace is coming from on this," and says she sees no purpose in inserting herself, quote, into this on one side, that is a moral and logical absurdity. There is only one moral side here, Erica Kirk's side.
I'm going to stop it there because that's a great line. Erica Kirk, the widow, is the only side that people should be on here. And obviously, Dr. Piper, because you've written about this, I'll let you go first here. You have written about it at length. You have warned people. And in fact, didn't you start actually blocking people from your Facebook pages if they're going to come on there and they're going to defend Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson and some of the savage things that they have intimated about Charlie Kirk's best friends and family in Turning Point?
Well, yes, to answer that question, yes, I did start blocking people. I said, I'm going to start blocking you from my social media for your anti-Semitism. I'm not going to entertain that. This is my living room. This is my house. This is my party. I have no obligation to let you eat my food and drink my drink. If you're going to come to my party, enter my home, you better be polite. And anti-Semitism is not under the definition of being polite. So I have the right to tell you to leave. And I have told people to leave, specifically over the anti-Semitic rhetoric. Now, let me start with Tucker Carlson. I'll try to be brief. Not to name drop here, but I had the privilege a few years ago to be in the green room with Tucker Carlson. I was actually assigned to be the host guy in the green room to try to entertain and keep the Fox personalities well-fed and in good temper while they were preparing to go out into the show. As I was there, I engaged with Tucker Carlson, and I asked him, just as an interested fan, how much time do you spend in preparation for a given interview on your show? And he specifically told me 8 hours. And then he clarified. He said, a few years ago, I had a guest and he got the best of me on my show. And I vowed that that would never happen again. I spend 8 hours in preparation for someone like you or anybody else before you ever get on my show. Now, with that as the context, do you think Tucker Carlson was surprised by Nick Fuentes? Absolutely not. He knew exactly who Nick Fuentes was and what he would say. There is no excuse for not challenging Nick Fuentes when he said that he thought Hitler was, quote unquote, really cool and that he, quote unquote, really liked Joseph Stalin. For no redirect, no pushback, no countering of that terrible perspective, it's unconscionable. And I really am really disturbed with Tucker Carlson that he did that. Now, as to Candace Owens, she's a nut. She's a nut job. She entertains flat earth theory. Yes, I've watched her on Bill Maher's show actually do that. She has perpetuated the lie, the anti-Semitic lie of blood libel, that Jews go out and kill Catholic children before Passover and use their blood in matzah. She perpetuates that lie to this day. She denies the moon landings. She continues to do all this crazy stuff. And now the anti-Semitism and I'm just asking questions about perhaps TPUSA being involved, complicit in the assassination of their own leader, Charlie Kirk. This is gossip at best, and it is slander, and it is wrong. It is sin. And as a conservative, and I've said it 1,000 times on your show, Bob, conservatives have the obligation to be people of principle, not politics. And when one of our own jumps the ship and starts acting ridiculous and saying things that are obviously wrong, immoral, and unethical, and non-conservative, to remain silent in the face of those things is calling damnation unto yourself. It's just wrong. I think we're obligated to call our own out, and I don't care if Candace has been in our camp or Tucker's been in our camp, and I've been a fan of both, but this is wrong. And anybody that's remaining silent right now in the face of these terrible accusations against TPUSA is crazy. I mean, why aren't we talking about Charlie Kirk's legacy? Why aren't we coming together in unity? Candace has single-handedly destroyed the unity of the Conservative Party right now. And if we lose in the midterms, it goes back to her. And Tucker's complicit too.
Strongly said and well said in my estimation. It's the reason I brought it up and the reason I wanted to feature Ben Shapiro last night, and I will everybody else. What's strange about it, Jonathan, is that Tucker continues to be welcomed by Turning Point USA. He's speaking there as well at America Fest. Candace has kind of become persona non grata because of everything, but Tucker still seems to enjoy their comfort or their company for one reason or another. Your thoughts?
Well, most of those people I wanted to like, and I kind of did at various points in my discovery of conservatism, including Candace Owens, and somewhere I have a picture at some dinner with Tucker Carlson. I liked those people until I didn't. I differ slightly from Dr. Piper's perspective in this regard. We can't afford very much the divisive splitting and fracturing of the conservative cause, the conservative movement. And I think there are some bad actors that know that keep trying to divide us. And the more we're divided and fractured and flailing around, the less likely we are to succeed at the end goal of conquering the far left. This is, in my book, and I've documented this in actually great detail, we're at war, and it's called fifth generation warfare. You can call it Cold War or whatever you want, but this friendly fire, it's not even friendly fire. It's just, these are like grenades that are lobbed by ourselves. We have to try to sidestep as rapidly as possible. So in my book, I have my recommended approach is when you see people like Candace Owens and they reveal themselves as quickly as possible, let's try to mute them and deplatform and keep our eye on the end goal. And I'm with Dr. Piper. What should be talked about all day, every day, is Charlie Kirk's legacy and what he was driving for and the mission. And if you'll forgive me, Bob, for 1 second, I want to throw something in that I think is critical to this conversation. And that is that we're not the enemy. We're not the focus. Candidly, the three of us in this conversation, the left don't care about us. They want the children. They're after the next generation, always. And to that end, I want to introduce something that I wish more people like Ben Shapiro and those of us in the conservative movement paid closer attention to. In looking at K through 12, and I've just spent years I'm still very involved in evaluating K through 12 education and where it's pointed. One of the things that is a clear tell is the publishers of material that gets put into K through 12. You're talking about ed tech, the publishers behind the curriculum material. Lo and behold, there's a name you should know, listening audience, and Bob and Dr. Piper, and that is Lori Cardoza Moore. Lori Cardoza Moore is a champion of uncovering stuff and what's happening in education curriculum. Behind the scenes, this is where I'm headed with this, and I think it really, really factors in, is the owner groups behind some of these publishers, like Pearson Publishing and McGraw-Hill, that do a lot focusing on K through 12 education. The owner groups, who'd like to think that there's some wealthy family living in New York or something, but actually there are Middle Eastern buyers, very heavily Muslim-backed, who have formed buyer groups and have majority shares in these publishers. They now lean very heavily, not only left and anti-American, but anti-Semitic. That's where a lot of this is coming from. And so now we have the next generation coming online who are hearing things like Candace Owens and thinking, oh, aha, that makes sense. That jives with what I was taught when I got off the yellow bus. That's a disaster, and we need to call it out.
I completely agree. And Dr. Piper, I'll go back to you to kind of close this out. Here's the conundrum that we have, those of us who are Christians, especially very outspoken ones like yourself. Candace and Tucker and others have wrapped themselves in the Christ blanket, saying Christ is king, Jesus is king. And of course he is. We know that. That's not news. But they are basically turning it into, if you don't say that all of the time, thus demonizing Jews who don't believe Christ is king. The anti-Semitism Jonathan just talked about is the result of that. If you're teaching these kids that you cannot have tolerance for those who don't believe that Jesus is the Son of God and the Messiah and the Savior of the world, that the Judeo-Christian values should only be Christian values, and that there's no room for the other side of that. That's what she's done here. She has turned it into, and she's telling young people, if you don't, believe that Christ is king, you are evil, you are demonic, you are, like you said it before, Dr. Piper, she engages in blood libel and advances that. But it's an attempt to revive anti-Semitism, not just anti-Zionism over Israel, which is a huge part of this thing with Turning Point and what Candace Owens is coming out with, but they're wrapping themselves in, you can't criticize me because I'm a Christian and I say Christ is king, and if you aren't with me, then you don't believe Christ is king and you're not a real Christian. That's some dangerous stuff going on there.
Well, first, let me say I agree with what Jonathan said about trying to remain silent in the face of foolishness. One of the best bits of advice I ever received when I was a young university president trying to solve the problems of a nearly bankrupt school when I took it over was an old sage who had been on the board of trustees for 100 years. Came to my office one day when he had heard the gossip that was circulating through town over some of my budget decisions and difficult choices that I was making. He stood in the doorway of my office, looked at me as I sat crestfallen at my desk as a 42-year-old deer in the headlights, wondering what in the world have I got myself into. He looked at me and he said nothing but this: "Mr. President, just be quiet." And he turned around and walked away. And I'll never forget that. What he was saying is, in good old Okie terms, if you want to find a snake, listen for the rattle. Don't rattle, because other people will, and they'll expose themselves for being the snakes that they are. It's hard. It's very, very, very difficult to keep your mouth shut when false things are being said. If possible, the ideal is to ignore the evil and let it burn itself out. Jonathan, I don't know if that always works. Sometimes it's hard for me to keep my mouth shut and not fight back against this foolishness. So I understand why Erica Kirk was as quiet as long as she was. I think that's why. I think she was of that attitude. If we give this fire fuel, it will engulf us. So let's not give it fuel. I get that as an ideal. With regard to the Christ is King thing, Bob, yes. Any believer in Jesus Christ as our Lord and Savior believes that Christ is king over our lives. But does that mean we impose our will on other people who have not claimed the same? No. The principles of a free society are Christian because Christianity assumes free will and the individual's right to make a decision as to what they're going to do with their daily lives. And as Thomas Jefferson said, Piper paraphrase, if it doesn't break my leg or pick my pocket, what do I care? In other words, the principle of co-belligerence within the United States, per Francis Schaeffer all the way back to Thomas Jefferson, is we can lock arms in co-belligerence for a common moral cause like pro-life, pro-freedom, pro-justice with people who don't share our born-again belief in Jesus Christ because it's the moral thing to do. And humanity, all boats rise with the tide of a biblical worldview, biblical values. So Christ is King is a personal conviction that I believe every Christian must apply to themselves, but imposing that on others as if you don't believe, we're going to exercise some sort of crusadal penalties against you for not bowing to us. That's not Christianity. That's not true conversion. That's forcing people to parrot things that they may not believe, and that is not honoring Christ as King.
Yeah, and worse, it's demonizing, again, Jewish people, I think, intentionally. The anti-Semitism Jonathan was talking about, I think, is exemplified in that. It's more than just, Charlie Kirk, sorry to beat this, but Charlie Kirk tried to bring people to Christ, not by demonizing those who were not there. He was inviting them. And that's what he spent, his entire adult life doing, was inviting people. It was his number one mission. And that's what Turning Point is all about. Turning Point is a ministry. Turning Point isn't really a political organization. Do they engage in politics for the purpose of advancing, good, faith, family, freedom, and a Christ-like world? Yeah, they do. But they're a ministry first and foremost. And the one thing that good Christians don't do, and you just said it, Dr. Piper, is we don't try to force ourselves on others. We offer and invite and try to convince and try to tell people, but we don't demonize. What Candace and others like her are doing through Christ is King and this campaign is to say that if you don't say that, then you are our enemy. You are evil. And considering the fact that the entire premise of Judaism does not believe that Christ is King, that Christ is the Messiah, that Christ is the Son of God, it essentially turns people against Jews. And that creates, again, we can go back to the race story we were talking about before with CRT. It creates a division amongst good people. And of course, for evil to win, good people must be splintered, and that's what they do. So, Jonathan, anything to close it out, sir?
I've adopted the same stance. I've heard through my delving into the founding of our country and our history, some great stories about Jewish backers who believed in the principles of the founding of America and put everything and pledged their honor and fortunes to the founding of our country. So it truly is, from its very beginning, before the country was even formed, a Judeo-Christian venture that founded on biblical principles and values. Even if, and I've got some friends who are atheists or non-religious, who still understand the value of the principles within the Bible and will read it. And I had a very good friend of mine years ago tell me he loves the stories. He doesn't believe, and that's fine. That's his choice. But at least, at a minimum, let's give access to children to the founding principles. Let them at least throw them a lifeline to at least understand the concepts that should go into our liberties and freedoms. Because when you understand that, you're in a much better position to assert your own liberties and rights.
I think that's well said, and that's a great way to end our conversation. Jonathan Broadbent, Unwelcome Wednesday. We're going to talk again. Appreciate you both very much. I didn't plan to make this the way the show went. I was going to talk to Jonathan about the attack on millennial white men and Dr. Piper about the TPUSA thing, but I think it was a great chat. So guys, both of you, thank you so much for being a part of it.
Blessings to you.
Thank you both.
And to you as well. All right, I'm going to wrap this a few minutes early today because of circumstances being what they are. Don't need to really delve into it, but we're going to wrap this a little bit before 12 o'clock today. Before I close, though, I want to remind you of what I started the show with. The paintings behind me, people have been texting me and people have been hitting me up on DMs, mostly through Facebook, on my Strictly Speaking Unfiltered Facebook page. where did you get those? I got those from he's a Northeast Ohio artist named Ray Simon, who was at Strongsville, the Strongsville Christmas party, Strongsville GOP Christmas party last week. And yes, you can get them. And in fact, you can get them in time for the conservative on your Christmas list, because if you live in Northeast Ohio, you can go pick them up, have them send them to you, whatever. But the website that you want to go to, let me throw it up on the screen for you super quick. The website to get these and save money by using my name is raysimon.art. raysimon.art. Use the name France and get 10% off of each of these. And he's just got a whole gallery of conservative paintings. It's really, really beautiful. In fact, let me pull them up here before we lock out one more time, if I can. Yeah, just have a look real quick. This is, I'm trying to make it full screen. There we go. That's the best I can probably provide for you without you just going to raysimon.art yourself. But that's the Charlie Kirk mural, essentially, that he painted. That painting, the original, is hanging right now in Mar-a-Lago in President Trump's house. The original painting of this one, which is called The Awakening, is in Donald Trump's White House right now. The original actual painting. I got these prints from Ray himself, and you can do the same. Here are just some of the other ones. That is the Fight, Fight, Fight. That is a tribute to the United States Marines, always faithful, semper fidelis. That is just, it's called Fields of Freedom. It is just a glorious representation of our country. Look at the grass. Look at what color the grass is beneath the mountains. Yeah, the flag imagery, it's just amazing. And this is one of my favorites too. Abraham Lincoln reading beneath the Abraham Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., sitting on the steps, reading to children, black and white, a symbol, of course, of his extraordinary role in ending slavery and advancing this glorious republic. This is called the crucifixion. And as you can see, there's so many depths to it. Each one of them, by the way, each one of these paintings comes with a certificate of authenticity and a paragraph of expression of the inspiration, what made him paint these and to do them the way that he did. So if you're interested, as you can see in the corner of the screen, raysimon.art, just in time for Christmas. Conservatives on your list, go to raysimon.art, use the promo code France to save 10% on your order. All right. Thank you to all of the chatters. We had a three-way conversation here today, so I didn't get a chance to get into the chat very much. But those who were engaging in conversation, thank you. Thanks to those who hit that tip jar, otherwise known as the Rumble Rants logo at the bottom of the chat room, and everybody who is faithfully and loyally supporting this program so that we can advance and spread our voices and make a bigger impact as we try to shape public perception of what's really going on in our country with the intention of saving it. That's what we're here for. I appreciate you being a part of the show today. We're going to be back Monday. Not sure what time. Follow me on social media to find out details. If we're going to change the time of the show starting on Monday from 10 a.m. to noon to a different time, there is a possibility of that I can't really get into at the moment, but please follow me on social media. Look for Strictly Speaking with Bob France on all of the usual social media platforms, and you will find me. Strictly Speaking with Bob France in some variation, maybe Strictly Speaking Unfiltered, but you will find it. Thanks for watching today. Be well.